one of the most expensive commercial movies ever made. It cost $200 million to make, even more than the previous Red Notice. It's an intense movie. The lead actor was once an assassin. The villain is played by Captain America from the Avengers. The story begins in a nightclub. CIA agent Colt is on an assassination mission. He finds the weapon his assistant prepared for him in an underground vault. The director tells him that the target has information that could jeopardize the country. He told Colt to make sure he killed him. Soon the target appeared. Colt locked onto the target's location via thermal imaging. Just as he's about to pull the trigger, a young boy blocks the firing line. Despite the chief's order to fire, Colt didn't want to hurt anyone. The chief was so angry, he threw his glass of water, and Colt didn't stop there. He grabbed a walker's hairpin. He stabbed the bodyguard in the neck. Then he grabbed a dinner knife and killed another. With the help of his assistant Donnie, the two of them took out all the bodyguards. The target jumped out the window in fear, but Colt wasn't going to let him get away. He jumped out the window right after him. As soon as he hits the ground, he's hit with a stick. The two of them wrestled, but it was Colt who got the better of him. He stabbed him in the heart. Before he died, the target revealed a shocking secret. It turns out he was once a CIA agent because he accidentally discovered evidence of the director's crimes. That's why he was assassinated by the organization. He gave Colt a flash drive. He told him not to trust the director, and then he took his last breath. Soon after, the director called to ask him about the flash drive. Luckily, Colt was careful. He said he didn't find the flash drive. Then he went to an internet cafe to check its contents, but the files were encrypted. He didn't have access to them, so he sent the flash drive to a friend for decryption. Then he contacted his former boss and told him what had just happened and asked him to help him get out of here. Soon Colt arrived at the airport where he was picked up and boarded a plane out of Bangkok. What I didn't realize was that the director had sent another agent, Lloyd, to find Fitzroy. He took Fitzroy's granddaughter as a hostage to force Fitzroy to kill Colt. Fitzroy had no choice but to contact his men and tell them to do it, but Colt was prepared. As a top agent, he could easily take out a few mercenaries, but during the struggle, one of them accidentally pierced the plane. There was an instant loss of pressure in the cabin. The fuselage was also broken through a big hole, and it plummeted towards the ground. Curtis grabbed a parachute, but one of the soldiers grabbed it. He jumped out of the plane. Kurt jumped out of the plane and chased after the soldier who grabbed the parachute bag. Colt put a rope around his neck and then opened the spare parachute bag. Successfully resolved the crisis. After landing, Colt contacted Fitzroy. Not only did he find out what happened to him and that Lloyd was after him, Lloyd's got a couple teams of mercenaries. He's put a $50 million bounty on Colt's head. At that moment, Colt found a shady store to get a passport, but while he was taking pictures, the owner suddenly stepped on a button and Colt was locked in the dungeon. Turns out the store owner saw Lloyd's bounty. Colt was so angry, he shot his gun. I didn't realize the glass was bulletproof. The man used a pair of scissors to slowly break the pipe. Then he took the bullets out of the gun. He took the bullets out of the gun and removed them one by one. He poured all the gunpowder inside and wrapped it up and put it into the water pipe. Then he took off his socks and blocked one end of the pipe. Finally, used the gun to block the other end and wrap it with tape. This is how you make a simple bomb. In order to escape from the dungeon, Colt broke the pipe with a rock. As the water level rises, he uses his buoyancy to reach the entrance and fixes the bomb to the wall. Meanwhile, Lloyd had arrived with his men. By the time he reaches the entrance to the dungeon, Colt's already underwater. He used the rope to pull the trigger. The force of the impact knocked the men from the entrance, and Colt escaped. He quickly took out the rest of his men, but Lloyd caught him. Lloyd forced him to hand over the flash drive, but Colt was no slouch. Kurt was able to get away with it, but Lloyd was soon after him. He was about to grab Colt when he felt a sudden pain. When he looked back, he realized he'd been shot with an anesthetic. The next second, he fell down the stairs and passed out. The man who just arrived turned out to be Donnie. When Colt took the flash drive, Donnie was the first to arrive at the scene. That's why the CIA suspected him of going rogue. In order to clear his name, Donnie came to take down Colt himself. He stuffed Colt in the trunk. On the way, he talks to Kurt. Colt had already sent the flash drive to his best friend, Margaret. In order to retrieve the disk, they had to go to Margaret's house first. With Margaret's help, they managed to crack the password of the flash drive. It contained all the evidence of the chief's crimes. He planned many assassinations without authorization, and he's reaping the rewards. That's why the chief had Colt kill his partner to get the evidence back. Donnie's planning to go public with it, but now we have to save Fitzroy and his granddaughter. Meanwhile, Lloyd has returned to the base. He's starting to press Fitzroy on the whereabouts of the flash drive, but Fitzroy had no idea. But Fitzroy doesn't know anything. His men found out that Colt had sent a courier, so they followed the trail. On the other side, Colt was about to leave Margaret's house, but now it was too late. Lloyd's mercenaries had arrived and were shooting at them. In the confusion, Donnie got the keys to the car. Colt told him to retreat. He stayed behind to protect Margaret, but as soon as he jumped into the tunnel, Margaret locked him in. When the mercenaries broke in, Margaret was sitting calmly in a chair. The gas had been turned on, and Colt, who escaped through a small window, he tried to go back to save the others, and the next thing you know, there's an explosion upstairs. Margaret chose to die with the mercenaries. Colt was arrested by the police as soon as he got up. They leaned him against the guardrail as if he were the killer. Then a van pulls up nearby. Colt realized something was wrong, but it was I've never seen mercenaries with this kind of swagger. They're shooting up the street indiscriminately. Even the police were not spared. When the center found out about the situation, immediately sent a group of special police to reinforce. Facing the strong firepower of the special police suppression, the mercenaries couldn't stand it for a while. In order to solve the battle as soon as possible, they used an RPG to destroy an armored car. On the other side, Cole picked up a gun. He fought back against the mercenaries. The car was about to crash into him. He broke his handcuffs and escaped. Then he ducks into the tram and begins a merciless harvest. The sound of gunfire attracted the attention of two other mercenaries, but they were attacked as soon as they boarded the train. They were killed instantly. Colt grabbed his fallen shield. Under the cover of his shield, he was able to take out all of his enemies, but then another car came after them. They were shooting at Colt, but the shield stopped all the bullets. Donnie drove up to the car in the nick of time. He slammed the gas pedal into the sister in front of him. The car made a U-turn. Colt was about to jump into Donnie's car, but then he realizes he's got a heavy weapon. Donnie steered hard to avoid the fatal blow. At that moment, another police officer arrives. The enemy immediately turns the gun around. With the tram out of control, Donnie slams the mercenary's car into the front. Colt darts backward and jumps onto Donnie's car before it crashes, and that's how he survived. Lloyd was furious when he saw all his men killed. He couldn't imagine that so many of them couldn't kill Colt. On the other hand, Colt found out where Fitzroy and his granddaughter were being held. So they were going to go get them out. They drove to Lloyd's base. Then they split up. Donnie first, he shot down a patrol helicopter. With a rocket to get the enemy's attention. Lloyd knew they were back, but when he went after them, he realized he'd been set up, and Colt had taken Fitzroy and his granddaughter. He was so angry, he found the bodies of his men. In order to get out of there, Donnie used another rocket to blow up their command center. Colt took Fitzroy and the two of them to get out of there, but on the way, they were spotted by the enemy. Fitzroy was shot in the chest, so Fitzroy offered to hold them off while Colt and his granddaughter got out. Seeing that the enemy was approaching, Colt jumped into the water with the girl. When Lloyd arrived, Fitzroy surprised him, but it didn't kill him. He's got Colt and the girl trapped in the garden. Colt told the girl to step aside and planned a fair fight with Lloyd. They're both top agents. At first, they were going at it pretty hard, but Lloyd, wounded by the blast and without the protection of his shield, was quickly losing ground. In a moment of desperation, he pulled out his knife and stabbed Colt. This time, Colt can't stand it. At this critical moment, Lloyd's assistant arrived. Lloyd's assistant was transformed. He was sick of Lloyd's brutal behavior, so he shot him, and the crisis was finally solved. At the end of the story, Donnie released the evidence of the commissioner's crimes, and Colt adopted Fitzroy's granddaughter, and they lived a quiet life, and that's the end of the movie.